ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Zombie Train. This is episode number 302. Now, that means we have a route review next week. If you'd like to submit a route, talk to me on Skype at bombs321. Sorry. I was trying to launch into something there, but most importantly, this is an episode where we're going to focus on a question from Zombie Train episode 234 by TPomp311. Where he says, nice explanation on St. Paul, but I didn't hear anything about Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Did you build the Milwaukee Road facility? Did you rebuild the Chicago and Northwestern Yard at the State Fairground? Or did the city fall into utter ruins? I goofed on that episode and I talked about the wrong city. So this time we are actually going to talk about Milwaukee. And it's funny that I missed up on the opportunity to talk about Milwaukee. Because Milwaukee was a place where we actually did a lot, but not necessarily a railroad-related lot. Now, there's a reason for this. There are basically two decent ways to get from the east to the west over Marias Pass, unless you go through Omaha. If you're going to the north, you go through Milwaukee out of Chicago. If you're going a little bit farther west, you go through Minneapolis. You could go through both, but if you go north through Milwaukee, or as we later found out, which is the easier thing to do, the western outskirts of Milwaukee, and then you head up. Well, in that case, you'd head up towards Appleton and then cut across. But you either go very close to Milwaukee, or you go very close to you go through the heart of Minneapolis. There's not a way around Minneapolis. That was the reason that we ended up basically going with the Minneapolis route in the end, partially because we found the city easier to clear, but I talked about that in that other episode. Was difficult, though. Anyway, Milwaukee. Milwaukee, because it was a seaside location, gave us a great idea, and it was an operation that was requested that we undertake, but it was requested by the military as a test bed for ways to tackle oceanside cities in the east. Now, this was a point in time, it was a few years into the war, we were maybe a year into the Zombie Training Incorporated, maybe less, so there wasn't a lot of motive power to go around, there weren't a lot of people, we didn't have a lot of places that we could turn to, or a lot of places built up. Again, the reason that I'm disappointed that I missed out on the opportunity to talk about Milwaukee is because it was a first major attack that we made on a zombie-fortified city, or not fortified, but a zombie-infested city. Just like any other major city, it was full of the things. So, we decided that the best thing to do was, because zombies sink, they are not buoyant. Unlike a normal dead body which bloats up and decomposes, a zombie isn't doing that. It isn't really decomposing at any appreciable rate. So, we figured, what if we lead them into the water? You know, what if we make a whole bunch of noise off the coast, we get in boats, we don't drop anchor, but we get in boats, we blow whistles, toot horns, everything, we make tons of noise, we draw the zombies out into the water, come into the city from the backside, fortify the ocean side, and then when they come slogging out of the water, all waterlogged and relatively slow, because they're slogging through water and maybe tossed around by waves, then we'll have a decent shot. Okay, I'll talk about this plan and what worked and what didn't, because this is an operation that a lot of the times I talk about the show, it's like, I wasn't there for that, or I heard about this, or whatever. This is one that not only was I there for, I planned most of it. So, we got a bunch of boats, and this was everything from, like, oar boats that we could get running, to fishing boats, to sailboats, to, any sort of watercraft that we could get out there. There was a storm when we were bringing things through, whatever that whatever you call that strait, way at the tip of Michigan, at the tip of the mitten. There was a storm. We lost a bunch of boats. That was the first bad thing that happened. We ended up pulling into the bay near Traverse City and sort of, collecting ourselves because we didn't really expect to face that kind of losses. Like I said, this is a point in time where we didn't have a lot of places to turn to or a lot of people to pull from, and we lost probably 10 or 15 people just from boats that went down. We lost more than that in boats. We lost, not more than that numerically, but more than you would expect for losing 15 people. It's not like we lost one boat with 15 people. We lost probably a dozen smaller craft, and most of them had survivors, but a few of them had individuals that ended up going down with the ship, which was, it really sucked. Not only because we needed every man we could for that operation, but because we were trying to drum up some semblance of hope, of I don't want to call it momentum, but we wanted to make people confident about, hey, we can take back cities, and we're gonna take back Milwaukee. That's our first, that's the first thing. We've got a plan. So we had a train that was coming over Marias Pass, and that was supposed to get to Milwaukee about when we were drawing all the zombies out. And the goal was time it right so that, they're coming down and we're, they're unopposed. They got caught up. Well, first of all, they got stuck on the pass, and that delayed them. And that was one of the reasons why we got caught in bad weather on the boats, because we were trying to get there more or less at the same time. We didn't want to be sitting out there in the harbor doing nothing. So we paused, and bad weather set in, and that got us into trouble. And then the train had to detour somewhere west of Minneapolis, and they ended up going through Duluth. So that was another issue, which we did not anticipate. And then when they got there, they had more problems. They had a bunch of zombies that they ran into, and the train got stopped. They got attacked. They had to back out of town. And if anyone's really familiar with the railways around Duluth, you come in, if you're backing up, there's not another place to change your mind. So they ended up having to go, I think it was like way to the north or way to the south, if I recall correctly. They didn't, looking at a track map here, I think it was way to the north. They went like through Grand Rapids. Is that the same? No, that's not, that's a different Grand Rapids. That's not Michigan. And then they came down again into Duluth, but all the zombies had sort of followed them away, and whatever. They came down, they were running low on fuel. That was now their new problem. And they're coming down from, looking at this map, it's like Appleton, Oshkosh. I know they stopped outside of Oshkosh for water, and they sent someone out to the coast. And there were a couple of smaller towns there, but we had sent some boats ahead because we knew they were coming. We had sent some boats ahead to sort of draw zombies away and draw them down the coast. And that seemed to have worked. They got a messenger to the coast. They got in a boat and came to our fleet and said, hey, we're a couple of hours out. Go now. I don't remember why they had to send a person. It might have been something that was wrong with their equipment, but it also might have been something wrong that was wrong with our equipment. I know that we did not have proper communication, and that may have been the real failing of this whole thing. Because we knew each other's movements. Yeah, you know what? It must have been their equipment or something got destroyed while they were doing dealings around Duluth. Because we had contact with them up to then. And then we didn't. We all of a sudden didn't. We heard that they got in trouble, and we're sitting in the bay. Like I said, all of our ships are collected in the bay, and we're just sort of trying to keep ourselves alive. We staged a minor amphibious assault of Thunder Bay, but that was... or Thunder Bay? No. Why did I just call it Thunder Bay? That's not a place. I just made that up. Didn't I? Did I? Maybe I saw that on the map somewhere. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Traverse City. But we made landfall, like, way up the coast, not in the city itself. I think I've talked about Traverse City before. And we sort of raided and we dicked around up there. There wasn't really a lot. It's kind of sparse. But we were waiting. You know, they knew our position, and we knew that they had gotten in trouble somewhere around Duluth, and then we didn't hear from them for the better part of a day. And then this boat shows up and is saying, "We're almost good. You know, what are you guys doing? Go now." So we got out there. Weather was good. Waves were a little choppy. It was a little windy, actually. But we made tons of noise. And zombies came streaming out of the city. They came just hundreds of thousands of them, just into the water, just following our sound. And we sort of pulled back a little bit because we saw them under the water, like, piling up, because they were trying to reach us. They were, you know, they're not buoyant, but they're not heavy because they're underwater, and they're, like, climbing on one another. Not, you know, they're not smart enough to do it on purpose, but they are climbing on one another, and they're trying to get to the boats. And so we had to pull back. We had to pull back from the shoreline, and we just popped a flare. The train, which was waiting outside the city, saw the flare, moves in, drops like its complement of soldiers, which was not enough people, and starts to storm the city. They run into zombies that got caught in buildings. They got caught in, like, yards and stuff that they just couldn't figure out how to get out of. And so they ran into more resistance than they expected, which it was astounding to me, because I watched all those zombies come out of the city. And they ended up getting beaten back. Meanwhile, we're in our boats, and we decided to pull back, because that's nothing more than we can do. There really aren't any more zombies coming out of town. We decided we're going to pull back, and the train has sort of left them. It's moved up the coast. Up the coast? Was it up the coast? I think it was, because it was like a dead end or something. Yeah, because they ended up getting in trouble, again, as you might expect. Yeah, they started going up the coast. We met them at Port Washington, which is not far away, and we went in to join the fight. By the time we came back, the group of people that we had left there were almost completely gone. They were huddling out. There were a bunch of them that had gone up in a building, which is not a smart thing to do. And they were trapped up there. We managed to draw the zombies off. I don't know what building this was, but it seemed important. You know, I led that rescue mission to get those people out of the building. We got them out. We pulled back from the city, and then all the zombies started to come out of the water. The second phase, like I said, was fortify the waterfront and get them to come out of the sea. Now, we were leaving, you know, we were trying to head north again, just to regroup. We ended up going down that same one-way track because we were a little bit panicked. Or one-way. Dead end. We get up to Port Washington, all the zombies had followed the boats there. There are hundreds of thousands of zombies there, and we're trapped between one group and another group. We mowed down so many just getting back to Milwaukee. And there were some times, and you think it's like an unstoppable thing. You hit too many zombies, things get gummed up. We weren't even running engine first. We were, you know, shoving. And we had one occasion where the back truck came off. We were moving kind of slow. We were shooting from the back platform. The back truck came off, and we had to get off, defend the area, get the train back on the track, and continue going. And we made it out. But we lost a lot of people, and Milwaukee was not at all a success. Anyway, Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Train Man out.